Following Crisis on Infinite Earths, the DC Universe was, sort of, reinvented, and the creators behind the scenes wanted to crack down on interdimensional and temporal travel. Makes sense, as loosey-goosey time travel could lead to the left hand not knowing what the right is doing, if you establish in Flash that the past can be changed, but in Green Lantern you say it can't. So it was decided one person could only use one time travel mechanism twice. Behind the scenes, it makes sense why they would do this, but in-world, this makes no sense at all. Why does the time sphere stop working for Rip after he uses it twice? Does the time trapper just not like other people time traveling and wants to limit it? If so, why allow it at all? Well, the creators want to do some time travel, but don't want to go overboard. At the beginning of the 1990 Time Masters miniseries, Rip Hunter already knows the limitations of time travel from an adventure he had with Booster Gold. So for all I know, this makes sense if you read that comic. But just reading the Time Masters trade, these limitations feel like I'm playing a role-playing game with specific checks and balances instead of reading a story. Getting past that, this is one of the most depressing non-stories I've ever read. Rip Hunter finds out the Illuminati is behind everything horrible, and in the aforementioned Booster Gold story, he found out the world will suffer a nuclear apocalypse and he wants to avert that. But because of said limitations on time travel, every time Rip and his allies fail to stop the Illuminati, that's it, they don't have a do-over. It doesn't help that Rip seems to be the only one taking the threat of Armageddon seriously. Everyone else is helping out, but they seem to be in it just for the novelty of time travel, or they're hoping to get lucky. If you like stories with incompetent protagonists who accomplish nothing, you'll love this book. And I get it, not all stories will be happy, upbeat fun times, but I want to see at least something accomplished by the end. The closest this book gets is Rip Hunter setting all of this in motion when he violently kills the caveman he thinks is Vandal Savage, only to realize he killed poor Vandal's father, likely mentally scarring him for his very long life. But at least he has a smile on his face, the murdering psychopath. You could argue they accomplished something by not doing what they set out to do, as this lady goes to the future and finds out the Illuminati are now the good guys, trying to hold everything together with what little information about human history they have. So if Rip succeeded, the future would be screwed. Still a downer. Speaking of downers, let's talk about Corky. I've never read pre-crisis Rip Hunter, but Corky was apparently a supporting character then. I guess the creators here thought they had to use those characters, but it felt like they didn't want to use Corky. He shows up spray painting the truck of someone who gave him a ride, jerk. Then he accidentally time travels to dinosaur times, wasting one of the time travel methods on himself. Later, Rip is pretty mean to him, but he brushes that off. But when Corky volunteers to help, Rip tells him he can't because it's one round trip per customer. Technically, Corky only used the backpack, so he could have still helped, but Rip is probably thinking, no, I've bungled everything in this series, let's not add child endangerment to the list. But, and I guess I should do a content warning here, Corky gets upset and hangs himself because he can't help with the time traveling, which is what makes me think the creators really didn't like him or just didn't know what to do with him. But here's an idea from my years of expertise as a backseat driver. What if when this lady goes to the future, the sphere malfunctions? The crew is operating on a shoestring budget. It's not unreasonable one of their time travel devices would malfunction, as it did when Animal Man borrowed one in his own series. She's stranded, but then she meets an older version of Corky, more mature and level-headed than he was 50 years earlier. Corky was already whining about there being no future, but now he's the one trying to hold everything together. It's not much, but it's better than what the series did with him. With how abrupt the series writes out Corky and this lady Tony, I was absolutely sure they would bring her back in the future stuff. Nope, that would be something you would expect in a good story. I've read worse, but none that felt so bleak and hopeless. And to hear the creators talk about it, it feels like they were more concerned with establishing how time travel works rather than telling a compelling story, which is what I would expect from an actual writer, not the head of the sales department.